Hello and welcome. In this presentation, I'm going to be discussing virtual races. My name is Jamie Orr and I'm the owner of Run the East, and we are a professional race timing and management company located in North Carolina, but serving a nationwide market of virtual races these days. We're going to be discussing today several different virtual race topics, including some of the benefits of going virtual, different types of virtual events, talking about three key areas to consider with virtual event planning, these three being promotion, the participant experience, as well as communication. So we're going to discuss these three areas today within this presentation. So the first thing I want to talk about is some benefits. And so the first benefit, an important one, especially in the current economic climate, and that is making money. And so in this current economic environment, a lot of nonprofits have had fundraisers canceled, donations down, and there's a real need to generate some income. So a virtual race can be a way to generate some much needed income. I like to tell people to think about, some money is certainly better than none. A virtual race may not bring in the kind of money that would typically be brought in, especially by a larger event with a lot of corporate sponsors and that type thing, but certainly can generate some revenue, and especially in a difficult year like this, certainly some is always going to be better than nothing. So virtual races can help make some much needed money for the cause. Another really important thing that virtual races can do is keep up engagement with runners, sponsors, volunteers, all of our different stakeholders. Because what we've found in our experience is if you don't do something this year, a lot of those people are going to move on. And it's going to be really difficult to get them to come back after they did not participate or not do anything during this year. So by offering a virtual run, it can still keep us engaged with those past participants, offer our sponsors something to do, things like that, so we can keep them as a part of our community and our supporters. A third thing that virtual races can do is they can help us reach new participant groups. So obviously with a virtual race, we're able to expand to a larger geographic area because we're not necessarily limited to people only within a certain radius of where a physical event is held, so we can expand our reach geographically. We can also expand our reach demographically as well. We're finding with a lot of virtual events, specifically some of the challenge events and events that market more beyond just runners, are attracting walkers, more walkers than typically, and people who wouldn't typically be participating in an event. Specifically, we've seen a lot of these challenges attracting some, an older, more female crowd of less serious participants who are more likely to be walkers than runners. So we can expand our reach, not just geographically, but demographically as well through a virtual event. Number 4 is avoiding the dreaded, what I've termed gap year here. What we've found in our experience of working with events over the past several years is when an event takes a year off or intends to take a year off, in a lot of cases that event is never going to come back. And when they do come back, we've seen some pretty sharp declines in terms of participant numbers. Sometimes over 50% drop with taking a 1 year off. So offering a virtual event, while to some people it may not be ideal, but if the choice is a virtual event or nothing, it's certainly going to be much better to offer a virtual event, still give the participants some way to participate, to stay connected, stay engaged, keep you on their radar, versus doing nothing and risking losing a lot of those participants when we do come back and having to really start doing a lot of rebuilding at that point. Finally, a virtual event compared to a traditional event, quite a bit lower cost, can be a low-risk fundraising strategy. Putting on a virtual race, there's typically little or no upfront cost to get started with a virtual race, and without a lot of the expenses of a traditional race. In a year like this, with so much uncertainty, budget cuts, that kind of stuff, if it's not feasible, whether it be from a safety standpoint, a governmental standpoint, or a budget standpoint, to host a traditional race, a virtual race can be a great alternative that can be a little bit more budget friendly in those cases. So those are some of the benefits of going virtual. One of the questions that we get a lot in talking with a lot of different potential virtual event hosts and participants, that kind of stuff, is people asking, well, okay, if I do this virtual run, or if we offer this virtual run, how do people participate? What does that process look like? And so I wanted to spend a minute just talking a little bit about that. And so it's a pretty simple process. Basically, just like with a traditional race, there would be an online sign-up page where people would sign up online for the event, and then so they sign up during a specified registration period, and then sometime after that registration period, and in some cases it overlaps, but then there would be the participation window. So it could be a weekend, it could be a week, it could be a couple of weeks, just depends on the event and what they want to offer. And so then during that participation period, then they would complete their run or their walk. So, typically they would, depending upon whether it's what type of event, which we'll talk about in a second, they might use a tracking app that we'll talk about in a little while to record their time. If it's a challenge, they might just be going into log activity, different things like that. So bottom line is they sign up, then they participate in the event, then they're going to submit their results. So if we're helping with your virtual event, we can set up a variety of different ways. So some of those options would include using an app that the participant can use during the race. A participant can manually upload results. A participant can export from something like Garmin or Strava apps, things like that, and then submit their results. And then that way, they can be listed online, share their time, see how they stacked up against the rest of the field, things like that. And then finally, the last step would be getting the swag to the participant. It could be, in some cases, swag goes out after the participant completes the event or the challenge. In other cases, they would wait until, or it might actually happen sooner if they want the participant to have the shirt, like to run in for the race, they might send it out earlier. So it just varies from event to event exactly how they want to handle that. So that's what the process looks like. Now, there's a couple different types of virtual events. So I wanted to explain this because not everybody is familiar with this, but there's a few different types. So I've kind of narrowed it down to 3 different types of virtual events. So number 1 is a single event. And so this would be a standalone virtual event that takes place at a specified time that is not necessarily associated with also an in-person event. So a good example of this would be a race that was scheduled to be in person, and they transitioned to doing a virtual event instead, like especially right now in the COVID era. So there's no in-person event, but there's just a virtual event. And the idea of one of these is that the participant is going to go out and in one session complete the distance. So it might be a virtual 5K when the participant goes out, runs or walks a 5K, or it could be a 10K, a half marathon, whatever distance the race organizers decide. But the idea is the person is going to go do it at one time as opposed to it being a cumulative effort. So single events are good, like I said, as an alternative to an in-person event, for an event that's already been scheduled. They work well for things coinciding with a particular holiday, things like that. So there's different ways that can work, but that's what a single event would be. The second type would be a virtual event that's added to an existing in-person event. I think this is going to be more and more important as we start to see some races, some in-person races starting to happen again later this fall and into the spring, because even as restrictions are lifted and some people are starting to participate, or some people are starting to be able to host events again, not everybody is going to be comfortable attending in-person events up front. I think we'll see some people who will immediately jump back into it. Others will be a little bit more cautious. And then some, especially those with underlying health conditions or have family members at home who are higher risk, things like that, will be some of the last to come back. And so the problem is, if we just have an in-person event, we're going to be losing out on these people. And as I talked about earlier, whenever we start losing out on people, the chances of them coming back next year, very small. So we want to do everything we can to keep them a part of our event, keep them engaged. So that's where offering the virtual event in addition to the in-person event can help to reach both groups, help to reach the people who are comfortable attending in person and those who are not. So we can offer both. I always recommend to people, if you're going to do that, I think it's a great idea, by the way, for, fall, early spring events, that kind of stuff in the current environment. And I think will probably persist long past the spring, too. I think virtual events are here to stay for a while, and will certainly be something that we consider and have to stick with even as things with COVID improve. But also an important thing to remember is flexibility, giving people the option to switch between the two based upon, if their situation changes, circumstances change, that type of stuff. So, so that would be adding a virtual component to an existing event. And the third thing would be a virtual challenge. And these challenges are a little bit different in that, unlike the traditional or the single event that we talked about, challenges, instead of being done in one session, are designed to be done as a cumulative effort. So it might be a multi-day, multi-week activity. So it could be a 30-day activity challenge. Could be a mileage goal where we're trying to reach 100 miles over a certain time period. Lots of different activities can be a part. So it could be running, walking, biking, but doesn't have to be those. It could be stair climbing, minutes of aerobic activity, books read, minutes of walking your dog. So there's lots of different activities that could make up a virtual challenge. But the main idea is we're going to try to engage our participants over an extended period of time. So whereas as opposed to it being, I go out once during this week and run the race, I'm going to keep logging activities and keep building up towards that goal over time. So that's what the difference is with these challenges. All right, so now that we've defined what a virtual race is and talked about what some of these different types of virtual race are, we're going to talk now for a few minutes about some best practices. So I'm going to talk about promotion, the participant experience, and then finally talk a little bit about communication. So let me go through each of those. So promotion, obviously we want to have people sign up for our race, and so if we don't promote the race, nobody's going to sign up. So we need to think about how and what we promote. So the first question to consider is, should we market to our existing list or not? In most cases, the answer to that is yes, especially if it is a charity or a nonprofit organization that has traditionally done an in-person race and they have to shift to a virtual race. Marketing to that existing list is a great idea. The only time when I would say it perhaps doesn't make sense is if it's going to be a totally different audience. For example, if I owned a series of races that catered to very serious runners. And all of a sudden now I was planning a virtual race that was geared heavily towards walkers. That would be a very different audience, so it probably in that case would not make sense to market to my existing list. But for most people, in most cases, starting with your existing list is a great idea, because it helps. It can give us a starting point to already have some people to communicate with, that they've already participated, that type of stuff. So in most cases, as I said, yes, the answer is we should market to our existing list. With a virtual run, we found that doing the biggest marketing push for 3 to 4 weeks prior to the race day or start of the challenge is key. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't or can't start marketing sooner, but this is really the time when you want to do your biggest push, put the most money into ads, things of that nature in that 3 to 4 week period right beforehand. And for a challenge event, a lot of times the first day of the challenge ends up being a really big day for registration too. So that can continue to be a really good time to push hard and market, pushing the FOMO of fear of missing out. Don't miss out, challenge is starting, sign up now, that kind of thing. So that's an important concept with promotion. As I've talked about earlier too, a lot of virtual races and challenges are attracting a non-traditional crowd, so more walkers and people like that. So we don't want to just target runners in our marketing. So we want to also think about how can we target walkers, casual joggers, people who would typically not participate in a traditional race. Part of this goes along too. There are some people who may be willing, who may be runners, walkers, that kind of stuff, especially in their neighborhood for maybe for exercise or to stay in shape, whatever. But they may not be comfortable attending a race in person. It may be, intimidating to them. They may not know anyone. They may feel like they're not fast enough, not good enough, whatever. Where now offering a virtual race might give something that they could participate in and, feel like it's not beyond them, above them, whatever. So we can reach some additional people that way too. Another important thing in our promotion, since the majority, I would guess, of those watching this are going to be nonprofits and charities, is make sure to focus on what's the cause, where's the fund, where are the funds going. People like to feel like they're helping a good cause, especially right now, with so many charities hurting, by stressing, what's the cause and how important their support is, and that type of stuff can be really important. And another piece related to that is not only marketing the cause, but also asking for donations. We've found a lot of good, a lot of virtual races have had good success with asking for donations too. Somebody might sign up and then donate an extra $5, $10 here and there, which granted in and of itself is not a whole lot. But those start to add up when we get several participants donating and doing different things, and all of a sudden those things start to add up. And so it can be a good way to offset some lost revenue due to lost sponsorships, decreased participation, things of that nature that may be going on right now in the current environment. So what should we market in terms of our messaging? Well, a few things we want to focus on. Number one is the swag. That's the number one question people ask. This is not just exclusive to virtual races, but it's especially important for virtual races, is people want to know about the swag. T-shirt, medal, whatever the swag is, make sure that's a focal point of the marketing. So if you're posting stuff to Facebook, if you're doing Facebook ads, whatever, the swag, pictures of the swag need to be the primary thing in the marketing. Other than swag, focus on the cause, unique stuff about the event. So all of those things need to be included in our messaging. The other thing related to promotion here that I do want to discuss for a minute is referrals. And so this is something that is not unique to virtual races, but it's even more important, we're finding, with virtual races compared to traditional in-person races, and that is referrals. And so the idea with referrals is when somebody signs up for the race, they get a unique link. They can then share that link with their friends, and when somebody else signs up using that link, that original participant is going to get credit for a referral. And then we can establish that if at a certain number of referrals, that participant can receive either a full or a partial refund. That participant might get a special swag item, things like that. And so that can be a really effective way to market an event, because you're essentially incentivizing the participants to do your marketing for you. So referrals can work extremely well. We're finding that they're even more important for virtual races, but the key to being effective with referrals is setting the thresholds properly and promoting it. If all we're doing is setting it up and have one little blurb about it somewhere people don't know about it, it's not going to be very effective. So it's got to be promoted really well. So I would definitely recommend this for all races, but as I said, especially virtual races. What I would be more than happy, for those of you doing virtual races, if you would like some suggestions and input on how to best implement referrals, certainly reach out to me or a member of our team. We'll be happy to help you with that. Another promotion thing that can help is doing teams. Just like with in-person races, people like to run and participate in activities with their friends, and so virtual races are no different. So we can allow people to participate, set up teams and groups. We can do we could offer discounts when a group gets to a certain size, trying to appeal to, say, a running group, a group of friends that is training together but doesn't, looking for a race to do, but there's not many races to do, so they might choose a virtual event instead. Or maybe it's a group from a team that is out, has no cross-country season this fall, things like that. So working with teams can be another effective way to promote and get some additional runners that way. Because if we can get one person on the team and they can get the rest of the team involved, then all of a sudden they've really helped expand our reach quite a bit. Facebook ads continue to be an effective way in terms of if you're going to spend money on promotion. Facebook ads continue to be one of the best ways that we've found to promote events. Same is true for virtual, although sometimes promoting virtual races, the strategy is a little bit different than what we would do for an in-person on Facebook. Again, we have a lot of experience in this area, so if you have questions about how to best do this, feel free to reach out. We can help you with that too. So that's promotion. The other important area to consider is the participant experience. And the importance of the experience is certainly not unique to virtual races. We've seen over the past several years an increase in the importance of the experience when people are surveyed in terms of what kind of stuff helps them choose one event over the other. A lot of that stuff really centers on this idea of experience. So they don't want to just go to a run, they want a whole experience. So obviously, this is a little more challenging with a virtual run, is trying to bring that experience that they'd get from a traditional in-person event to a virtual run where we're not all together in one place. So there's some different things we can do. Part of it, as we've already talked about, is how important swag is. People want swag, they want good swag, they want memorable swag, that kind of stuff. So a shirt is definitely a given. People definitely want shirts, and not the cheapest, most basic shirt you can get, but something nice, something memorable with a nice design, things like that. In some cases, medals might make sense too, especially for challenge events or events that appeal to a more serious runner, or events of longer distances, higher price points, things like that. Medals make really good sense. But I would say for a shorter distance race, maybe that's primarily a fundraiser and is going to be mostly people who are already connected to that organization, that charity, medals may not be as important. But that's just one of the, one thing in some cases makes sense to do. The other thing, though, that we have to think about when it comes to swag is the shipping and fulfillment, because if we're shipping stuff to our participants, somebody's got to do that. Generally, that's a couple of choices. Either do it in-house, so people on staff, volunteers, whoever, commit to packing stuff up, shipping it, that type of stuff, or going to a third party. There are different third parties that can assist with this kind of stuff. We do, and we offer virtual race fulfillment as one of our services too. So we ship quite a few shirts for different races. So we're happy to help with that too. But somebody's got to do that. And so that's a decision that needs to be made fairly early on in the process. Or, is the organization going to be doing it? Is it going to be outsourced? That kind of stuff, just depending upon what resources you have in house and how much time you want to commit to that type of stuff. Digital swag as well. So in addition to physical swag, there's digital swag, things like a digital race bib that the participant can get and print out before the race, a digital finisher certificate that they can print out or share on social media after the fact, showing that they completed the race or the challenge or whatever the event was. So digital swag could be coupons and offers from sponsors, could be another piece of digital swag. So digital swag is an important component as well. Another piece that can really greatly enhance the participant experience is an app called RaceJoy, and this is a GPS tracking app that the participant would install on their phone and use during the race. And RaceJoy is available for both in-person and virtual races. And what it allows the participant to do on a traditional race is it allows them to monitor their progress along the course. They get updates at each mile. They get off-course alerts if they go off course. Their family and friends can track them from home as they progress along the course, things like that. But with the growth of virtual races, RaceJoy now also supports virtual races with a run anywhere option. So your participants don't have to run on a set course, but instead they can use the app. It'll track their time, their distance as they're out on the course. You as the event organizer can record audio alerts to play to them at certain points, such as like hey, you're halfway there, keep it up, or hey, you're only a mile to go, finish strong, things like that. Also gives the ability to put in sponsor logos and banners to give, and sponsor shout outs to give them some recognition too. So there's a lot of ways RaceJoy can help make it more of an experience and less of just me going out running by myself. So RaceJoy, as I said, it's an app that the participant installs on their phone, available for Apple or Android. No cost to the participant. To be able to offer RaceJoy, the race would have to be working with a RaceJoy certified timer. And at Run the East, we are a certified timer, so we are able to offer RaceJoy to both in-person and virtual races. So if you're interested in finding out more, definitely let us know. We'll be happy to give you some more information on that. Virtual results are another piece of the experience. If you're using RaceJoy, RaceJoy can help track that and submit it. But also, we also recommend, and when we're setting a virtual race up, we also allow for manual submission. So if somebody doesn't run with RaceJoy, they can track their time manually. They can upload it, or if they have tracking their stats in Garmin or Strava or one of those apps, they can actually export from there and then import to be able to upload their time and their results, which becomes especially important for a challenge, because a lot of people who are going out running every day are using a Garmin or some type of device to track that. And so if they have those files, they can simply export each time they participate. They can export that file from Garmin or their Strava app and then import that in. So virtual results are another piece, because again, it lets people know, see their time, see that they have a record of participating, and for challenges, it allows them to track their progress towards the goal. So as opposed to the results simply being a name and a time, it's going to give, for let's say a mileage goal, it's going to give that person's mileage, what percentage they are towards the goal, that kind of stuff, so your participants can see, hey, I'm almost there, or I'm, got a ways to go, whatever the case may be. So virtual results, challenge goals, that's all part of the participant experience. And then lastly, here is photos. Again, making it feel of an experience and less of a person running by themselves. We can set up photos and allow participants to upload their own photos. So somebody who goes out and runs, they can take a picture of themselves out running, maybe wearing their race shirt, or after they finish, a picture of them with their race medal, whatever, upload that to the website, and so participants can go on and they can see photos of other participants, their friends, whoever else, and see them, and it creates, again, more of this community feel, more of this experience feel, and less of just somebody out running by themselves. So I can't overstress the importance of the participant experience, especially for virtual runs. This gives some of the key areas to consider when it comes to that. The last thing I want to highlight is communication. So with virtual runs being a new concept to a lot of people, you can probably expect quite a few questions from people who don't understand what a virtual race is, how to participate, that kind of stuff. So the best advice there is go ahead and try to anticipate what a lot of these are and get this stuff out there. Some of the common questions you might get: what is a virtual run? What's the time frame? Where do I run? Do I have to run in one place? What's the swag? When am I going to get the swag? How do I upload my results, submit my time? All of these are some of the questions that we're seeing people who are not as familiar with virtual races are asking. So as I said, the best thing to do, maybe put together frequently asked questions and put it on the race page, or email it out to people when they sign up, things like that, to try to stay ahead of those questions. So at any rate, hopefully this has been helpful, giving a little background on what virtual races are, some of the different types, and then talking about some of the keys to virtual races. Now, you may be looking at this and saying, hey, this sounds great, but just seems like a lot of stuff to think about. Well, we're happy to help with your virtual event. We've been working with a lot of virtual events this year, and we've worked with standalone virtual events that are part of a in-person event, as well as challenges. So we can help with any type of those. We can help with everything from just simply helping with the results and race joy piece, everywhere up to putting together a full turnkey virtual event where we do the whole thing for you. So if you're interested in more information about that, or have any questions about the presentation today, feel free to either email us, look us up online, and we'll be happy to answer your questions, or set up a time we could discuss one-on-one to give you some more details on virtual runs and answer questions specific to your virtual run. So again, thanks a lot for tuning in today. As I've said before, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.